Hey guys, Mike here with EBR, and this is the Velotric T1 ST Plus. It's a bike that Velotric markets as being built for fun and for fitness, and it's got a nice city commuter vibe coming in at only 39 pounds. It promises up to 70 miles of range, 28 miles an hour speeds, even has app connectivity, GPS ride tracking, Apple Find My integration, and health tracking as well. But more importantly, this is only $12.99. So let's see what $12.99 gets you in 2024 with the Velotric T1 ST Plus. So the T1 ST Plus is a Class 3 bike, meaning it can get to 28 miles an hour. It is UL 2271 certified, 2849 certified, and ISO 4210 certified. And again, that MSRP on this bike is a low $12.99. Now, when it comes to weight, they advertise this bike as being 39 pounds. I threw this one up on the scale and it weighed in at 44. When it comes to colors, they have this sand color, or they have what they call lava, which is a nice orange color, and it comes in two frame sizes. They have a regular that fits riders from 4'11 up to 5'9", and then they have a large that fits riders from 5'6 all the way up to 6'4. I'm 5'11 and found that this bike fit me just fine in kind of being in the middle ground of that large frame size. Now, the max payload on this frame and this bike in general is 330 pounds. And when it comes to specific geometry numbers for the large frame, we have about 27.2 inch standover height, 44 inch wheelbase from front hub to rear hub or vice versa, 17.2 inches in reach, and then around 32 to 39 inches for minimum and maximum seat post height. Now, when it comes to tires and wheels, they went with a 700C black alloy wheel, and tires are Kenda tires with puncture resistance, and they're sized at 700 by 40C, which is a nice kind of entry gravel size tire. Now, they say to run this at 50 PSI, although because it's a rigid frame, so no suspension, you kind of feel more imperfections on the road. I chose to run this in the low 40s, and I found that was kind of a good sweet spot for still having some cushion to eat up some of those vibrations on the road in the tires themselves, but still have the nice traction and control I'm gonna want when I'm riding the bike, even in wet grounds or just varied terrains. Now, when it comes to fenders and racks, so they didn't supply any on this bike. The way it comes is just like you see it here, but they do have several mounting points, which is a good kudos to them because they kind of left it as a blank slate for you, how you want to build it out. So you've got mounting points for a rear rack here. You've got two different bosses on the down tubes here for water bottle cages or toolkits. You've also got a mounting point up front for fenders and a front rack, as well as even a mounting point along the fork there on the front. So really you could kit this out for anything from city commuting with fenders and a rear rack, all the way out to sort of a bike packing gravel rig where you could kind of do attachments on the fork and kind of kit it out front to back. So I like seeing that many mounting points, just letting the consumer, those of us who ride, figure out what we're gonna do with the bike. I kind of always like seeing that. Now, when it comes to lighting, they did supply this with a wired rear tail light and a front headlight, and the front headlight's rated at 60 lux. I find it bright enough for riding in the evenings and nights and still having a little bit of enough visibility to still be seen by daytime traffic. So all in all, nothing super fancy in the lighting, but definitely enough for a good commuter city bike. So when it comes to the motor and battery on the T1 ST Plus, keeping in mind or keeping the theme of its fitness bike, it is a 350 watt rear hub motor. Now, this rear hub motor is 350 watts nominally, but can peak it up to 600 watts and can put out a respectable 40 Newton meters of torque. Now, I rode this bike quite a bit this week. It's got over 230 miles at this point, and I found that it holds its theme of a fitness bike very well. And when I say that, I mean because it does have a torque sensor that activates the motor, so it's essentially trying to match my effort, but in this case, it's dialed back just a bit, meaning I do still need to pedal a little bit with the bike. And on flats and your average rides, that's no problem at all. It actually feels really nice. It just gives you a subtle bump in every PAS mode, unless you go to boost and really crank it up. But just day-to-day ridings, it rides really nice with requiring you to kind of give a little effort yourself. If you want, there's no throttle on this, so if you want to get up to speeds like 28 miles an hour, or say you get to a steeper hill, it's going to require you to pedal a little bit more enthusiastically, and you're going to have to pick up some of the slack. And I kind of think that just keeps with the overall theme of having a bike that's helping you get in shape, but still having juice to help you out along the way, not leaving you to do all the work. Now, when it comes to the riding modes, so there's Eco, Trail, and Boost like you'd normally see, but those are riding modes. And then under each of those modes, you still have your 5 PAS levels. So in Eco, you have PAS 1 through 5, Trail 1 through 5, and Boost 1 through 5. So it's effectively giving you 15 different settings to work with, so you can kind of find the right cadence and power level that works for you. Now, when it comes to the battery on this, as you can see, it's fully integrated into this frame tube right here. It is a 36-volt battery with 9.8 amp hours, giving us 352.8 watt hours. Now, you can remove this battery, although there's no simple drop down like we would normally show you with a key or anything like that. They actually have 2 bolts on the underside of the bottom bracket that you can remove, and that removes an access plate where you can drop the battery out should you need to service it or take care of it. But as far as a safety of theft or maybe leaving it out on the bike, there's nothing that anybody could just take the battery off the bike without knowing that in advance how to remove it. Now, when it comes to range, they promise the T1 ST Plus to get up to 70 miles, but they don't clarify if that's in Eco mode or if that's in Trail mode or if that's in Boost mode or what PAS level. So I just kind of hit the road with open intentions to start in Boost mode, so on the higher of the 3 riding modes, but in PAS 1. And I found that my natural pedaling cadence, just a relaxed ride on flat trails, was about 11.5 miles an hour with no assistance. And when I'm in Boost mode and I turned on that PAS level 1, it only went up by 0.5 mile an hour to 12. And I figured that's a little bit unrealistic just to get a 0.5 mile an hour increase as far as a range test goes. So I decided to use Boost mode, but then I went to PAS 2. So then I was getting a more significant help, actually making sure the motor and battery were working with me so I didn't get some exaggerated result. And what that gave me was 59 miles, so just shy of 60 miles, and they advertised up to 70, but keep in mind, I'm sure had I been down in Trail mode or Eco mode and PAS 1 in one of those, I certainly would have got 70, if not more, but I just didn't run multiple range tests at that level. Now, I did keep it in Boost mode and do a second range test, and I put that one at PAS 5, so now we're at the highest riding mode and the highest PAS level, and that got me 24 miles, so 24 up to 59 miles, and that's all within Boost mode. So just keep in mind, should you use Eco or Trail, you'll likely have longer results. Now, when it comes to a warranty, this bike has a 2-year warranty, and that also includes the battery. Now, when it comes to the components and drivetrain, they went with a Shimano 8-speed drivetrain. And so that consists of a Shimano Altus 8-speed rear derailleur. Now, there's no clutch on this. There's a little bit of tension in it, but should you take this off-road or kind of gravel riding on it, you will get a little bit of chain slap. But I do like the fact that they put a protection kind of shield on top of this chainstay to protect that when the chain does hit. Now, it's got an 11-32 rear cassette with a 46-tooth chain ring up front, as well as a chain guard on the outside. Now, the cranks on this are alloy 170 millimeters, and then for pedals, you have plastic black pedals that are a flat design with some studs and reflectors for visibility. Now, when it comes to braking, they went with Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, and it's a fairly simple setup. It's 2-piston calipers mated to 160 millimeter rotors, which I think is a very sufficient braking setup, especially on a 39 or 40 pound bike. It seems to work pretty well. Now, moving up to the saddle up here, they do have this, they call it a Velotric comfort saddle, but they do say on it it's designed by Selle Royale. So some sort of collaboration between Velotric and Selle Royale. I can say it's a little bit wider than most saddles on a commuter bike like this, but it's very comfortable and gives you good support. So as wide as it might look, I actually found it to be really comfortable on my rides. And on a bike that's rigid with no suspension, I kind of grew to appreciate it over time as I rode it. Now, moving up to the cockpit here, there's a couple things going on. The first thing is all of the, well, we'll get to the cables in a second. We'll start with the cockpit. So we've got a 660 millimeter wide alloy bar that does have a rise to it, so pretty typical of kind of a commuter style bike. And on that, you've got lock-on ergonomic grips on both ends that are Velotric branded. Over here, you have a bell, Tektro hydraulic disc brake levers, your Shimano trigger shifters with a window for the 8 speeds so you can see which gear you're in. And then you have your control here for the bike as far as your PAS levels go. Now in the center, you have your adjustable 60 lux LED headlight, as well as a stem that has 60 degrees of adjustability. I know a lot of you guys like the adjustable stems, and this bike does have that, so kudos to Velotric for that. Now, when it comes to cable management, they did kind of nicely put all the cables together, and then they routed them down through the headset here. And we'll let Ben talk about how that's going to work as far as servicing goes. But as far as giving the bike a clean look, it definitely looks clean and nice here in the cockpit. But let's take a deeper walkthrough of this display, as well as the app, because Velotric has a nice app that goes with this bike. So let's do that now. All right, so right here we have, I went ahead and added my phone mount just so we could put the display up at the same time as using the bike's control pad here. Now on this, you have a USB power port on the bottom side that's got a little rubber door cap to keep weather seals in place. And then you've got only a power button, plus and minus. Now on the display itself, you have a battery meter, you have a link icon that just basically means I'm paired to my phone right now. You have your riding mode, we're currently in boost mode, a headlight indicator, speedometer, and your PAS levels, which will change as you go through your PAS levels. Now, this little menu right here currently shows the odometer, so 238 total miles on the bike. But when you press the power button, not holding it will shut the bike off, but just tapping it will cycle through lots of different data points. So this one has average speed at 13, max speed at 33, calories or kcals, CO2 emissions saved, total time on the bike, and trip distance, and then trip time, and then it goes back to odometer. And that's going to be the bulk of everything you control right here on the display. Now, to get into more deeper settings, you can go into the app. You don't have to ride with the app connected, but it certainly gives you more functionality and the ride tracking. So you can go hit the start riding, and that will just kind of give you a little disclaimer about safety, and then you'll have your GPS map route along with your riding modes that you can change and your PAS levels. And then you can cycle through different data points, or you can bring that back down and look at the map itself. Now, if you can back out of this, you can go into the bike settings. Now here you'll have the name of the bike. I just gave it a quick T1 name because I will be moving away from this bike just in a couple days, and you can name it whatever you want there. Now here you can check or choose between your riding modes, so eco mode, trail mode, and boost mode like we talked, and then you'll still have the PAS levels for each of those. Down here, you can adjust the screen brightness of the display. I've currently got it maxed out for recording this, but I did find that even at number 3, it was still bright enough on my rides, even in direct sunlight. I'll put that back up for you guys. Here you can adjust the speed limit to limit itself anywhere between 12 miles an hour and 28 miles an hour. So maybe you're new to e-bikes, maybe you've got a kid who wants to ride the bike, and you just want to make sure nothing's going to be too powerful. You can dial this back and have that speed limited to 12 miles an hour. And you can bring it anywhere in between and just kind of put it where you want it to work with whatever your needs are. Now here you can change how long it takes the bike to power off once it's not being touched. So once you park it and walk away, you can have it do 5, 10, 30, or 60-minute increments before it will shut off. I've currently got it on 10 minutes. I found that when it's at 5 minutes, if I step away just to use the restroom or come back, it's already off, and that can be a little bit annoying. So 10 minutes seems to be a good ground for me. Here you can change the units between miles and kilometers. Here you can go into firmware updates, which I really like seeing firmware updates because you don't want to have to worry about plugging your bike in and downloading things on a computer and transferring it to your bike. Over-the-air updates, this will have a little icon on it when you need to update something, and you'll be able to update not only the display, but the bike's controller as well. And as you can see, both of these are up to date. They had recent updates. And then here you can unpair the phone. So say you want someone else to use it and they want to connect their phone, you can unpair and let them do that as well. You can go into your account settings and just check basic information like serial numbers and other firmware points like that. And really, that's kind of it. Now, this does have Apple Find My connectivity as well as the Apple Health tracking, but I use an Android phone. I am one of those horrible green bubble guys, so I'm not able to show you how that works. But those of you who do have an Apple iPhone, you can use your Apple tracking and health data integration with this bike, which is super cool as well. And that really wraps up the app and the display. All in all, it's a really nice system. The app is really functional and looks good, and I've had no issues with it. So all in all, solid job there. All right, guys, we're out here on the Velotric T1 ST Plus. And one of the things I kind of appreciate this bike for is how light it is. So, you know, they advertised 39. This one I got for testing was 44. But even at 44 pounds, I have no motor assist on at all. I'm not working really hard to pedal. It's in 6th gear. I'm going 13 miles an hour. Granted, I'm on flats, but That's not always the case. Actually, I know that's not the case for a lot of bikes, like some of the 80-pound, 100-pound fat tires. If you run out of battery on those, you got a rough ride home. But let's kick on some motor assist here, and we'll kind of talk about how that feels. So I've currently got it in boost mode, but I'm going to change it to eco mode. And if you notice, it changed here on the display. But I'm going to slow my pace down just a bit, put it in level 1 and see what we get. Mind you, there's 3 modes with 5 levels in each mode, so 15 total options. This will be the lowest one, so about 11.5 miles an hour. Kick on level 1, and there's a little surge for a second, and then it just kind of settles in right around low 12s, which ironically was about the same speed in boost at level 1. So let's go to level 5. And because it's a torque sensor, it's not going to just blast off like a cadence sensor would. It's waiting for my pedal effort. And because it's fitness oriented, it's kind of dialed back a bit, but I can definitely feel it, and I'm definitely not working very hard to get going 17 miles an hour. And if I do work hard, I can get, let's see, so about 26 in eco mode. Hopefully it's not too loud for you guys. It's pretty windy today. But let's change it to boost mode, level 5. And there's no throttle on this, so all the work's gonna be you. But on a commuter fitness bike, that's pretty perfect, I think. All right, so now we're boost mode 5. Let's pick up our pace. And there we are, to 28 miles an hour. Let's slow it down so I'm not too windy. The 40C tires, so 700 by 40C. It's a really good balance of light rolling resistance, but still having traction. Whether you have a rainy commute, you hit a gravel trail, or just taking a shortcut, the tires work pretty well. And they're quiet when they're this small, which is nice too. So the geometry here, pretty standard of a hybrid once again. You know, you're a bit leaning forward into the bars. I'd say a little bit more on this one. Not a whole lot on the saddle, but it's still hybrid with good visibility. The 350 watt motor on your left it's a good combination for this light fitness bike. So 350 watts rear nominal, 600 peaking, and 40 Newton meters of torque. It's good for most situations. Now, if you need, like we just did, to get to 28 quickly, you're gonna have to work a little bit. And if you get a steep hill, you're also gonna work a little bit. But I think that fits the theme of the bike. So the brakes on here are Tektro hydraulic disc brakes, 160 millimeter rotors, 2 piston calipers. I'm gonna get around this jogger. We'll get up to 20 and check the brakes out a little bit. On your left. Thank you. All right, so let's get going here a little bit. And we're going about 22 miles an hour. So I'll just go ahead and do a hard stop. 3, 2, 1. So a tiny bit of lockup, but still stopped very quickly. 2 piston calipers and 160 rotors on this light of a bike. Feels right. Doesn't feel like I need more. Doesn't feel like I'm wanting more. As far as modularity goes, there's a little bit in there, but not a whole lot. But all in all, they get the job done quite well. This is going to be really solid. I think it's a really good match for somebody who wants a commuter, wants to get, or keep their fitness during the week, but also doesn't want an e-bike that's basically a moped like we see a lot come out as, where they're just full of power and no real cycling aspect at all. This still feels like you're on a pedal bike. This still feels like you get to do a little work, but you also get the help of an e-bike. The only time I found I wanted anything more on this bike was on a steep hill, because the bike will get up there, but it's also going to require you to put in the effort as well. Anyway, it rides comfortably. I love all the mounting points. You could really kit this out with any of your, you could kit this out with adventure gear and make it a little flat bar gravel bike, which would be pretty cool on this size frame, especially with the down fork mount points. You don't see that often, and I love seeing that. Or just throw a rear rack on it and some fenders, and you've got an awesome commuter that's lightweight, easy to get around. Yeah, all in all, it's a sleek, fast little bike. It's fun, it's a great price. But let's go back and talk to Ben and get his thoughts from kind of a mechanic standpoint, the ins and outs and things he likes and doesn't like from a build perspective, and then we'll wrap this up. All right, guys, this is that time where I get to close my mouth and hand you over to Ben, our in-house mechanic, who's got a lot of experience working on bikes. He's just gonna kind of run through his thoughts on the Velotric T1 ST Plus. I'm gonna step out of his way, but before I do that, thank you to one of our channel sponsors, Feedback Sports, for providing us not only with some tools, but they're really nice aluminum Pro HD rack. It's lightweight, it's super sturdy, even with bigger, heavier e-bikes on it. It's just a very solid rack, and if you've been fumbling with yours at home, you kind of know the struggle is real, and this is one definitely should be on your short list if you're thinking about a new rack. But I'm gonna step out of the frame. Benner, what are your thoughts on things you like about the Velotric T1 ST Plus?
All right, thanks, Mike. This one, we'll keep it kind of simple. The bike is simple, but there's some really nice standout parts to it. So first and foremost, I really like, and always do, a through axle on the wheel. What that does for a rider is it just lends itself to a lot more solid ride feel, and you couple that then with a threadless fork and a threadless stem, that whole entire front end just feels really nice. No flex, and to that point, it's got a very robust and adjustable stem, which it's common with an adjustable stem with a pivot or a linkage in it to be flexible when you stand up off the saddle and you really put weight into it, or maybe you're turning off the seat or something like that. It feels really nice. I really like the front end on this. They did a great job keeping it simple, but very, very strong. I do also like the cable management, how they've got it diving right down through the head tube. We'll come back to that in a few minutes, but the look of it, very nice, very simple, always easy to like. I'm always a fan of an under the handlebar shifter. That just means when you're on the bike and riding it, that's kind of where your natural position is with your thumb and your fingers. So it just makes it ergonomically easy to use and ride, which I think is awesome. A couple other points that I really like about this one is the quick release seat post height adjustment. Rather than messing around with a 5mm or a 4mm Allen bolt and tool, this just makes it nice. Open the lever, adjust the seat wherever you'd like to, and it does have graduated marks on the back too, so if someone else does ride the bike, you loan it to a friend, you can put it exactly where it was. Always like that. The last thing I'll touch on is the micro adjust seat post. I've mentioned in some of the other reviews where companies will use an older style 14mm kind of an axle and nut style that isn't as strong. Looks terrible in my opinion, and just doesn't stay as adjusted as well as long. So just always like to see that sort of a thing right there.
Nice. So what kind of things would you improve on this bike, Ben?
Great question. Thanks, Mike. So with this one, again, it's a great bike. It's very, very simple. There's a couple points that I really think I'll suggest that they consider changing in the future, and it would be a two-piece chainring. Why a two-piece chainring? So a two-piece chainring, what that'll do is make it easier to replace if ever it wears out, but more likely if it gets bent on transportation or something, it just makes it easier and less expensive to replace that. The second part of it is if the bike gets dropped, or again in transportation somehow, these are plastic bodied pedals, which are great because they're light, they're great because they're not that expensive. However, because they're plastic, if it takes an impact, they're going to crack. Likely they're going to crack and then break, and then you need to get replacements, which, is that a big deal? No. Is it going to break your bank? Probably not, but an aluminum pedal sure is nicer in there. So with regard to the cable management system on the front end, I hope that in the future they'll figure out a way to get the brake cables, the shifter cables down through the head tube, but not through the bearings. Okay, so what does that mean, and why is that a big deal? It's not really a big deal because it does look nice. However, if ever you need to replace the top or bottom headset bearings, that means both brake lines, you have to take the fluid out, pull the lines completely out of the frame, same with the shifter, then you can put a new bearing in, but then you've got to put the lines back through the frame. Now you've got to bleed the brakes, most mechanics can easily handle that. It's not a big deal that way. However, the problem comes is because it's a very labor intensive process, that means you're potentially looking at a pretty high cost if and ever you need to do a replacement of those bearings. It looks great, but is it the best mechanically? Not in my opinion. But the cool thing is it's not just Velotric that's doing this. There are a lot of companies using that same technique. So it's not just these guys, and it's not the only place you're going to see it in the e-bike or regular bike industry. It's common these days. I just personally wish they wouldn't do that. One last thing that I'll point out, and I have before, these are great chains. It's an 8-speed drivetrain system, but I really wish that it had a zinc coated chain. I've mentioned this before, and what that does for you as a rider, it means that it will have less corrosion. It seems like they hold their lubrication, their chain lube, a little bit longer as well. So other than that, I think it's a great bike. Very simple, clean lines. Oh, the last thing that I'll mention, I'm sorry, I almost forgot this one, is ease of access to the battery. With this one in particular, you've got a cover underneath the bottom bracket. It's only got 3 screws. It's very simple to get the cover off, but then you've got a controller in the way of the battery. So if in some cases you live in a very hot place, let's say southern Arizona, sometimes even in southern Utah, these batteries sometimes, not always, they can have a problem if they're subjected to temperatures over 120 degrees for a long period of time. So what that means as a rider or an owner of this bike, you'll need to make sure your bike is, if you live in a hot climate, that is parked indoors or somewhere where it's temperature controlled. Other than that, great bike.
Nice, Ben. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, man.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, guys. So there you have it, the Velotric T1 ST Plus. It's kind of a no-frills, everything you need in a good commuter electric bike. 70 miles of range, 28 mile-an-hour speeds, plus some nice tech with Apple connectivity, GPS ride tracking, kind of a lot going on for just $12.99. And I think the tuning of the 350-watt motor falls right in line with their fitness-themed goal of this commuter bike. It's going to be good for people who want to commute to school or work, or those of you who want to get in shape and want to do a little bit of the work with the bike, but not fully be on an analog bike and doing all the work. I think they found a nice middle ground with the T1 ST Plus. And if I missed anything or you have any questions, drop a comment down below. I do my best to reply to everybody. And if you haven't done so already and you're feeling generous, give us a like and subscribe. And until the next review, I will see you guys out on the trail.